many of you follow the Wayne County Bicentennial Facebook page? Oh, good for you. If you're not, hopefully by the end of this little segment here, you'll go on and try and follow us. And you can do that by going to
WayneCounty200.com.
Perfect. Yeah, there's a link there. If you're not on Facebook, you can get on there right from that link and everything will be fine. I suspect many of you know this gal. Is there anybody not familiar with her? Oh, if you drive over to Wolcott on Ridge Road, right at the Four Corners, this is Venus coming from out of the water. She was installed in Wolcott in 1913, and in 1943, those of you know what she looks like now. In 1943, the then mayor of Wolcott decided she looked pretty dull. She's, oh, you can't use this thing. She's constructed of zinc. The Wolcott historians like to say she's built out of iron, but if she were, she'd be pretty rusty through all of her paint. So she's composed of zinc, and she's our first lady of Wolcott.
She's more colorful now.
Yes. Any idea where this picture may have been taken?
It is a trolley line.
I'll give you a clue. It's the Rochester Sodas Bay trolley, not the one that went from Rochester to Syracuse. Any thoughts on where it might be?
Sodas.
Yes. Actually, it's Sodas Bay, at the Sodas Bay Rail Yard. When we first got this picture, we've got a guy who likes to share all kinds of real photo postcards with us, and he shared this one. And he had it marked as being in Ontario, which kind of makes sense. Ontario gets a lot of snow too. But just a few weeks ago, one of our followers saw this, a new follower saw this picture and said, oh, wait a minute. She recognized the people in the picture and actually posted some pictures that she has of relatives of hers who lived at Sodas Bay. So, any idea where this is?
New York Bed's in Ontario.
Exactly. If you drained the pond at Cary Lake.
Casey Park.
I'm ready for the gala.
Yeah, me too.
If you drain
They
the
can wrap
pond.
scallops.
Yes, I'm looking forward to those. I think I'll hang out with Liz. If you drained the pond at Casey Park, it might look something like this. It would be that deep. This I posted on Christmas Eve 2021. It looked like a good Christmas Eve picture because it kind of looks like the Polar Express, doesn't it? Yeah. And oddly enough, the company that made this particular engine merged with the company that constructed Polar Express car, the engine, in the 1950s. And so that's why it kind of looks like that, same company. Now, the last four pictures you've seen, these 5 slides that I'm going through right now, were the top 5 slides about a year ago. And we've kept them in because they still are on the top level. This one was number 1 of all the Facebook posts with over 38,000 views. It really got around. The pictures are by, you may remember Bill Huff.
Yeah.
These pictures are by Bill Huff. Ken May, our railroad guy, submitted them. This is the coal trestle at Sodas Point, and it burned November 5th, 1971. We posted this on Facebook 50 years later on November 5th, 2021. So this is, a developer had purchased the trestle and was tearing it down in hopes of building a marina there. And with the arc welders trying to cut the bolts and things off from the trestle, an ember fell down into the trestle below, and that's all creosote.
Yeah.
And so, poof, up it went in smoke, and you could see the smoke all over the place. I don't know if you could see it down here. I was out in Wisconsin, I couldn't see it then. And now for Arcadia. We're going to take a little tour around Wayne County, going through all the different towns. This will be abbreviated. And here's the little pitch to go check out Facebook page. If you want to learn more, there's tons of information on all these posts on the Facebook page, so you can read more about them. I think you guys are all familiar with these three buildings
Yeah.
from the top of the hill at Newark State School. Yeah. In the 1860s, there was a Baptist Collegiate Institute there. And Chris, if I say something wrong, correct me.
Oh, yes.
Okay?
You're right.
In 1873, it was a Lutheran academy. In 1880, it was a branch of the Syracuse Asylum. Then in 1890, it was a New York State Custodial Asylum for Feeble-Minded Women. And in 1927 is when it became known as Newark State School. And then in the 1970s, because of whatever things were going on in Albany at the time, they changed the name to Newark Developmental Center. In Butler, we have the Hibbard Basket Factory, which formed after the Civil War. Actually, a Civil War surgeon came back to Butler and started the basket factory. It became the first basket factory in Wayne County. Wayne County had tons of basket factories because of all the fruit that was being produced at that point in time and other crops. But it also was the top basket factory in the country. So Butler has that notoriety to it. The Clyde Glass Works was founded in 1828 by William DeZang, and they first produced glass, window pane glass, and then in the 1860s they started producing canning jars, the Mason canning jars, as well as soda bottles, beer bottles, and liquor flasks. And some of you are connected to Sodas Bay and will appreciate this. My husband is a member of the Sodas Bay Improvement Association. Those folks are responsible for harvesting the weeds over on the east side of the bay, and they dump them on one of the fields that we have on the east side of the bay. And David, my husband, likes to go through and kind of poke around in the dumped weeds. And one day he came home and plumped on the counter a Clyde Glass Works wine bottle. It's very cool. It's in the Huron Museum. And Hugh Minor's not getting it.
Or Chris Davis.
Or Chris Davis, right. No, staying in Huron. It was found in Huron, it stays in Huron. We like to honor different populations, this being Women's History Month in March. Now we're in April, so a couple years ago I found this gal up here. This is Olive Pennoyer Jones, her mother and her daughter. When women were first allowed to vote, or first gained the right to vote in 1917, men voted for women to be able to vote the following year. And that 1918 voting spree, women really helped the Republican Party gain a foothold. So the following year, women were invited to the caucus in Lyons, one woman from each town. And Olive was chosen to be the woman to represent Huron. Olive went on to be involved in all kinds of Republican caucuses. She was president of the Women's Republican Caucus of Wayne County, and then she traveled on to Albany to become a Republican delegate in Albany. So and I didn't know anything about her until just this last year. You all are familiar with the Lyons, with the Alloway blacksmith shop. If you go down 14 south of Lyons and hit Alloway, look on the right side of the road and you'll see it down there. It's a very cool building. This cobblestone's a little bit different. The Bullis cobblestone house. What do you notice?
They're all in a line.
Cobblestones all are in a, yeah, they all are in a line. They're built in courses, and they're built a couple courses a day, and then the cobblestone mason will go around to another house and build them up. But this is it's hard to see in this picture. The coins going up the side of the building, where both edges meet,
Corner blocks.
corner blocks, and the lintels across the top of the windows and the doors. Usually on a cobblestone house, those are composed of sandstone or limestone, red or white sandstone or limestone. In this particular building, it's brick.
Oh,
I don't think, are there any other cobblestones in Wayne County that have that brick?
Hadn't thought about it, haven't looked, I don't know.
Well, get out and check
Yes,
it out,
ma'am.
will you?
In my spare time.
All right, you do that. All right, I'm gonna hold you to that. Wayne Canning Company was established in 1893, and they canned everything from spinach, rhubarbs, apples, applesauce, pears, peas, beans, corn, cherries, raspberries, peaches, and lima beans, and more. In 1927, the Wayne Canning Company was purchased by Comstock Canning Company, who at that time had also purchased 6 other canning companies to become the second largest food processor in New York State. Now, it all had its beginnings here in Marion. I bet some of you know this guy.
Isn't it grandfather to Churchill? Is it Churchill's grandfather?
Yeah. Grandfather, great-grandfather, yeah. For the rest of you, I'll tell the story. This is Leonard Jerome, who was born in Pompey, New York, and moved to Marion and attended the Eddy Ridge Road Schoolhouse. 2 pictures of that. As a young man, he moved with his brother to Palmyra and worked with his uncle Hiram Jerome in Hiram's law office. Leonard married Palmyra girl Clarissa Hall in 1849 at the Western Presbyterian Church in Palmyra, one of the churches on the 4 corners there. Clarissa and Leonard moved to Rochester, where he worked in his brother's newspaper business. And the couple eventually moved to New York City, where Leonard was involved in all kinds of different enterprises. He and Clarissa had 4 daughters. Second-born daughter, Jenny, named after Jenny Lind, married Lord Randolph Henry Spencer Churchill on April 15, 1874. And then on November 30th, 1874, your math, it's a little weird there, they had a boy named Winston Spencer Churchill. So Churchill, if you hear that Churchill has roots in Wayne County, yes, he does. That's his roots. We like to just post pictures sometimes, and this was a nice picture that the Rose historian sent. This is Route 414 heading south from Rose, and School Street, those of you who are familiar with Rose. This building is still there, and up at the top, boots and shoes made and repaired.
Oh, we
Right there.
still need those today.
What's that?
We still need boot repair.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there was a boot repair just south, just before Clyde.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, Jean used to like to put in then and nows a lot. I don't do a very good job with the then and nows, but we've got this then and now. And Savannah hasn't changed a whole lot from then as it is now. Looks pretty much the
Paved the
same.
street.
Huh?
Paved the street.
Paved the streets and added some, traffic lights and things like that. And then, so, we've got another picture of Savannah, which I really love this picture. This is taken from the east side in the Seneca River, looking at what we have back here. This hill is Fort Hill in Savannah, south of Savannah on Route 89. And when we talk about early settlers in Wayne County, this would be the place where our early settlers would have been.
Is there any connection with Savannah, Georgia?
Savannah it's descriptive of the terrain.
Right, but that doesn't.
Yeah,
mean
the
there
lay
was
of the
no
land,
connection.
there's no
I don't
connection.
believe there
Okay.
is.
No, I think Savannah, Georgia probably is named for the same
For the
reason.
low land
Yeah,
out there,
yeah.
yeah.
So Fort Hill had an early population of Native Americans called the Clovis, who were predecessors to the Haudenosaunee or the Iroquois. And the Iroquois were on this, they actually had a settlement on top of this hill back in the 1600s, 1600s. And then, in the late 1600s and 1700s, the Jesuit missionaries were on top of this hill. They had a settlement up there. Jean, how about Susie?
In the mid-1800s, 1860 something, I believe, Susan Cleveland moved to Walworth to become principal of Walworth Academy and fell in love with the son of Theron Yeomans, who was probably one of the most prominent citizens there. And they had 4 children, I believe. 2 of their daughters decided that they wanted to get married the same day, in June of 1891. Creates a little problem for Dad. How do I walk both of my daughters down the aisle at the same time? So they called on Uncle Grover to come. Susan's big brother, Grover Cleveland, came to Walworth and served the function of walking one of the daughters down the aisle. And Susan is an interesting character, involved in all sorts of different things. She even, involved knew Susan B. Anthony. And
She and Susan were involved in the temperance movement together, but there was one thing Susan and Susan B. did not agree upon, and that was women's suffrage. Susan didn't feel that women should be voting. And so she did vote in one election when she lived in New York City, but that was it.
she lived to a fairly old age, and after her husband died in 1906, I think she moved to New York City to be with her children,
Mhm.
and spent the last several years of her life there.
Chris, do you recall with the Newark State School, was she one of, not, it would have been the Asylum for Feeble-Minded Women, I think. Was she one of the first administrators up there?
Oh, I don't know.
She had some connection with,
Yeah.
with the institution, and
Yeah, we
I gotta go back and look that up,
dig that out.
because I don't remember it. I don't remember my name someplace.
This is a composite of some shots from the Williamson 4th of July celebration. It was actually the annual convention of the Lakeshore Volunteer Firemen's Association in 1910, which included Wolcott, Sodus, and Williamson at that time. And then over time it expanded to include all the fire volunteers from Red Creek all the way over to Hilton. Some of us, I think, remember marching in those parades over the years. Up here on the right, you can see the firemen showing off their hoses, squirting a lot of water, putting out something. And then over here, we've got a nice parade, the typical of the Firemen's Association get-togethers. After the parade, everybody in attendance went to a picnic. They had greased pig and greased pole contests, all kinds of greasy things going on. And then they had a baseball game. I hope they didn't have a greasy bat with that, but it's, who knows. And during the baseball game, a fire broke out on the north side of Main Street.
Oh, cool, they got a whole bunch of firemen there.
Yeah, piece of cake to put the fire out, only one problem. With all their shenanigans in the morning, they drained the well. And they drained several other wells. They couldn't get enough water to put the fire out. Finally, they did get a source to get some water, and they saved this building, which is still standing today. That's Williamson Hardware, one of the oldest remaining businesses in Wayne County. And then this picture is, the more I look at it, the more it's becoming one of my favorite pictures. Not just because I grew up in Huron, but I consider myself a Wolcott kid. You know, Holly grew up in Huron, and I think you feel the same way sometimes. That's the Wolcott Hotel. At that time, it had a big arch up here, and it was called the Wolcott House. It's gone by tons of different names. And there's a lot of people out on the street. Why do you think there'd be a lot of people out on the street in Wolcott? In
Tabor Walker? This isn't that.
No, well, I don't know, we
1914
may,
is
but,
what I think, wasn't it?
what?
1914.
1914, yeah, I didn't want to say it, but that's okay.
1914.
Well, Roosevelt was there.
Oh.
Large crowd here to see and hear him Thursday afternoon. Ex-President Theodore Roosevelt and the progressive candidate for governor of New York State, Frederick Davenport, were in Wolcott last Thursday afternoon for 15 minutes.
Oh, my God.
He was up on the balcony.
Yep, right up here, if you can see this little
Oh, yeah.
head,
Uh-huh.
that's Roosevelt. And he stopped in Wolcott on his way to Sodas to speak to the people who had stayed around, because he actually was running late.
Bathroom break.
And here he is in Sodas, a little while later. He spoke to a couple thousand people that turned out, and some of them went into the new Sodas Opera House. There he is right there. We blew him up a little bit, and I need to find a more youthful picture of him.
So he was campaigning for a,
He was on a campaign tour with Davenport to become governor.
Governor.
Yeah, he was supporting, he had come from Oswego and was making the route down. Yeah. So we had Grover in 1891 in Walworth for his niece's wedding, and Grover liked, now just
I'm waiting.
okay, all right. Vanna, behave. Grover actually had connections in Palmyra and around, so he was in Wayne County quite a bit. And I think Bonnie Hayes has a gown that Mrs. Cleveland wore, maybe. I don't know, somewhere. So we had Grover in 1891. Going back in time, in 1861 and 1865, there was a president that came through twice
On a train.
on a train.
yeah. Once he was
Abraham
dead.
Lincoln came through in 1861 on his inaugural trip through Wayne County and the rest of the country, and then on his return trip on his funeral train going back to Illinois. In 1854, a young man just out of high school was headed to Massachusetts on the train and was going through Clyde and decided to get off and go up to Butler. Why would anybody just pop off at Savannah and go to Butler if they're going to school in Massachusetts? Well, this guy was going to visit some of his friends. His high school buddy was in Butler visiting his fiancée. The young people were coming down to Butler to attend church Sunday morning, and here is James Garfield
Oh.
at church, ready to deliver the morning sermon. After that sermon, they had a nice lunch, and then in the afternoon, they went to the Butler Congregational Church, where they all heard Antoinette Brown Blackwell, the first ordained woman minister, who was ordained in Butler and was a pastor in Butler for about a year. So they went to hear her. So James Garfield was here as a young man. Then we had Roosevelt in 1914, and then in 1958, another future president came through Wayne County. Do you remember Mr. Wizard?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jimmy.
Don Herbert?
Yeah.
Okay. Don Herbert and this future president were hired by Westinghouse to visit General Electric plants to deliver awards. And, you know, if the particular G plant did something new and unique, Don and future president, what's his name, went out and gave an award. And this particular guy wound up signing a lot of autographs when he came.
Because he was famous.
Mm-hmm. Any idea who that future president might have been? 1958.
Was it Kennedy?
It was not Kennedy.
Was it Reagan?
What?
Was it Reagan?
It was Reagan, it was Ronald Reagan.
Oh my
Go ahead, Dan.
If you look on pages 8 and 10 of this little book, there is a story, U.S. presidents visit Wayne County.
Yep. He was in Clyde, visiting the GE plant in Clyde, and Hugh Minor gave us that nice picture to stick in there of Ronnie signing all these ladies' autographs. And so, thank you.